Good afternoon, everyone. We are back in session, and we are at our budget work session, day 4. We have a few items today. Do you announce that, or do I?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, it's 250329. That's the Durham County District Attorney discussion. And then 250330, that's Hayti Reborn Justice Movement. Then we have our 250331, which is the add delete review. Correct? All right. So, Manager Hager.
Good afternoon. This afternoon's session will capture conversations, as Vice Chair Lee shared, that the board asked us to come back and have discussions. The first one with District Attorney DeBerry will be a conversation on a couple of items that the board raised in conversations with the Sheriff's Office, as well as conversations with school-related items. One was related to truancy and how that process works, and another one was related to the overall movement or cases to the courts. And so we'll invite you to the table to share. And again, thank you for joining us. And we will have continued conversations later in the fall with the public defender. She may join us. Her schedule was tricky today, and we did not coordinate it as seamlessly with her, but she may join us to listen in on the conversation and answer questions later in writing. So thank you.
So, Louis,
There's not a present. So, DA, the green button, if you push that, it'll get started. And with the 2 open-end questions, we'll just let you share, and then the board may have other questions that they may desire to ask. The one about truancy, you gave me a great overview of how that process works. It was a part of our conversation of how can we support Durham Public Schools differently in an effort to have improved levels of attendance, which ultimately leads to graduation rates. And again, the second one was about the whole courts and the process and the DA's role with movement through the system. We're seeing an uptick of individuals who are being detained, and I know that's for various reasons. You also gave a great overview of that.
Great.
Thank you.
So you'd like me to start with the truancy, or do you have a question?
That's
for
fine.
Dr. Lee?
No, go right ahead.
You do?
No, I don't have any questions. Yeah, just
Okay,
start out.
so I talked with Manager Hager on Thursday, I believe, and she said that you had some questions and asked me whether I'd want to do it in writing. I thought it'd be better for us to have a conversation, so I'm here to have that conversation with you all. And the first question was around truancy. And so just to give you kind of an overview of how truancy works, I think there's a misconception that Durham used to have a quote-unquote truancy court. Durham has never had a truancy court. Truancy has been handled either in delinquency court or abuse, neglect, and dependency court. There is a North Carolina statute that allows for the charging of parents if their children do not come to school, and those were usually did not reach court. But what had been the practice in Durham County for several years was that the various attendance assistants or attendance managers at various schools would send out a letter that was generated by my understanding, automatically generated by the attendance system, that would kind of lay out the law on truancy in North Carolina and threatened the prosecution of the parents if the child did not come to school. And I think that the system may have automatically generated that letter if a child had 10 unexcused absences. When I took over as district attorney, and then that letter would have the district attorney's signature affixed to it. When I became district attorney, I reviewed that letter. The letter was not correct on the law, and also I did not feel comfortable having an automatically generated letter under my signature that was, one, not correct on the law, and two, threatened prosecution to families for whatever reason. And so what I spoke to the superintendent about at the time, and I believe Dr. Lee was on the school board at that time, what I suggested was that they continue to send out the letter just with the superintendent's signature on it. It didn't need to have my signature on it. It let families know what the state of the law was. School board attorney could review it. They'd know what the state of the law was and what could possibly happen, but was not me threatening the prosecution of people. And so that is where we are now. I don't know that Durham County still sends out that letter. I know it certainly has not been authorized to send out that letter under my signature.
So I want to make sure I have this straight. So you're saying we never had a truancy court. Those cases were tried in abuse neglect court, those courts there, like.
Right, they were tried if they made it to court, they would have been tried in various district courts. That's correct.
And so how was it done before you became, because I'm trying to make sure I have it understood, before you became district attorney, would other DAs just bring, like if a parent, okay, they get this letter and then they don't comply, then would they get arrested? How would that work? Or they would be summoned to court? Or how did that work in the past?
I was unclear how it worked in the past. What I did know is that what generally happened is the family would get one of those letters. They would call the school about the letter, and then from there, the school would work with them. My understanding was that there were not many, if any, of those that ever made it to court.
So with that, with the switching of the superintendent, I do remember the discussion around that previously. How would, if it continued to be an issue, how would that be referred to you? How would it get from the school system to you if the truancy continued to be a problem? And if it does get to you, do you prosecute the truancy part of it if it's referred to you from the school system?
Yeah, I am unclear how it would get to me. It is likely that it would be either referred to juvenile justice, but again, juvenile justice doesn't have any jurisdiction over the parents. I imagine they would have to either refer it to some law enforcement agency for charging, whether that be the sheriff's office or Durham Public Schools. And it would be unlikely that I would prosecute that case. It would be likely that I would send that case back to the school for some type of negotiation and adjudication. Generally, kind of truancy, we see it happening in two categories. One is if it is with a very young child, that would probably come up in abuse, neglect, and dependency cases. School neglect is an actual thing and can be handled in that court. Other truancy matters are for older kids, and parents are like, I try to get them to school, I can't get them to school. What would you like for me to do? And so to me, it seems to be contrary to what we're trying to do around public policy, to charge the parents of children who may already be experiencing some type of issue at home to, charge those parents now with a criminal matter, and make it a criminal matter.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's safe to say that since the change has been made with the letter, there hasn't been a case come to your office related to truancy?
There has not.
Are you saying it hasn't? It hasn't?
That's correct.
Okay, that's correct. All right, thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Jacobs and then Valentine.
DA DeBerry, how are other counties handling this? Do you know how Wake County or Orange County? Is there any type of partnership or program related to this with the DA's office and the schools around truancy and absenteeism?
Not to my knowledge. It is not a high. To my knowledge, it's not a high priority of any office in the state. But
So you don't know how other? No. I mean, I think, just being frank, I think the problem is that we have to face the facts, is that there is a very serious absenteeism and truancy problem in Durham Public Schools, and especially since COVID. And what I hear from principals is that they have no way of, in the way things function, actually compelling some of the parents to respond, even when they do reach out to families. And what we have to look at this systemically is, when we have kids that aren't going to school, then it increases the likelihood that they are going to get involved in some type of criminal activity. And it really would be interesting if we could get the data on truancy, absenteeism, and also juvenile crime at the same time, like over the past 10 years, to look at the trends, because I think whether it was good or not, my understanding is that the previous letter, what it did was it helped get parents to the table. And while it wasn't, in reality, parents did not end up being charged, but what it did do is help bring people together to try to problem solve. And we don't really have a mechanism right now for some of the most severe cases. So at one point back in 2016, when I was chair, and I know you were part of those conversations too, Pat Evans, the district court judge at that time, was trying to, I think Elaine O'Neill was involved at one point, and then Pat Evans, around this school justice partnership, trying to bring everyone together and try to work together and problem solve around this. And I would really like to see those efforts renewed in some way, everyone getting together, because what's happening now is just not helping anyone. And I don't know what the solution is, but that's what's happening. And so I think why our board is interested in this, because we are at the intersection of funding the courts, funding our public education system, and funding our detention center, and funding our youth home. And so we're spending all of this money on these things, and we want to make sure that we're funding, we have our community intervention support services department. And it's just, I think in this budget cycle, it really hit home to us. We kept hearing from different intersecting parts of our system, and that I know we'll talk more about some of them, but it really feels like we need to bring people together to just address the crisis that we're having on levels. So I don't know if you have any ideas about what we can do around this issue, but the schools need help, the teachers and principals need help, and we don't want to criminalize the issue, but we have to come up with something that's going to work to bring everyone together. So I'd love to hear if you have any ideas or know about best practices that does still involve our courts and our criminal justice system in some way, even if it's just a supportive role. I don't know. I don't know what the answers are, but I know that what we're doing now is not working.
I agree with you 100%. I don't know if the folks on the board know that I'm vice chair of the Durham Public Schools Foundation. So my children are graduates of Durham Public Schools. So I do have a strong interest in this as well. Truancy has become a national issue since COVID. It's not just a Durham issue. What I suggested to the superintendent was that the superintendent send a letter out under the superintendent. They can send out the exact same letter under the superintendent's signature. Now, I think that would also generate some involvement from parents. What I've also suggested, I have talked with the school-based committees at several of the high schools, and I've suggested that we do a community-based intervention in which my office would be happy to volunteer to help to set up school-based courts that families or students can be referred to when they haven't, when there are truancy issues, that doesn't put the parents in criminal jeopardy, but does provide some level of accountability and require at least the student to show up and account for why they're not there. And we'd be happy to intercede in those. But number one, I am not the appropriate person to be dealing with school attendance. I don't have any of the tools that the Durham County Schools has. I know people think that we have that it is some type of magic to threaten to prosecute people. If that were true, we wouldn't have any crime. It doesn't work like that. I am I am a hammer, and all that I have to threaten people with is the loss of their liberty. And Durham Public Schools has lots of community partners and community interventions that they can help with that I do not have. And were we to refer them back to the schools, that's what would be happening anyway. So and I don't know what happened to the school-based partnerships. We did all agree to do that, and I know that has fallen by the wayside, and I'm not sure why, so I don't have an answer to that. But I'm willing to participate 100%. I'm just not willing to. I have 20 lawyers under my supervision, and we have 30,000 cases a year, and so we don't have the resources to deal with those.
Well, I definitely would like for us to learn more about these school-based courts, and it seems like it would be really important to have your leadership and involvement with that, and what that would look like. But we, absenteeism, school attendance is the biggest correlation with success for kids. So, and it's really an upstream issue that we need to deal with. So I hope that we can focus on this issue in the coming year with the schools, and I think it's everybody trying to work together on addressing this issue. So I appreciate you bringing up this possible approach. Thank you.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Madam DA, thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to see you here in the chamber. And it's also good to hear that you'd like to be a partner in solving, or at least mitigating the issues that we have with truancy in children in schools. And so I agree with you that how the arrangement was previously, most of the cases that were or would be referred would not be adjudicated in any way, shape, or form, and that's your position today. But at one time in our community, the C.C. Spalding Mediation Settlement Center actually had schools designated in which they had representatives from the community, having been one of them, that actually participated in this program to help facilitate a conversation with parents. And I can tell you that, and I hear your position very clearly on the letter, but the letter served as a mechanism to get the parents more involved, and that was an effective sort of approach to the issue with while also respecting your position on your name being on that form letter. But I'm not exactly sure what happened with the Settlement Center and their involvement in this, in their involvement with truancy in our schools. But I'd like to see that come back. It sounds like you would too, in some way, shape, or form, and be willing to participate in that process in some kind of way. And so I'm hoping that we can work together in partnership to see something like that happen. And so, to the extent that you would be a leader in that effort, we would welcome that. Okay.
And the Settlement Center was also involved in our domestic violence courts, and they've gone away from that too, and we definitely miss their participation in those courts. And I'm not exactly sure what happened to the settlement courts either. To the Settlement Center either. I know that they had some leadership changes, and but I know that they have mostly disappeared from our domestic violence courts and the courts in which we really depended on them to do some of the legwork that our office could not do.
So do we know whether that's a funding issue? Can I imagine?
I was trying to research. I know years ago we did have that. I remembered that contract, and part of it was through our nonprofit process, if I'm not mistaken. And when we had more focused areas that did not elevate as a category or for some reason was not funded, but we can go back and see the history, and I see Commissioner Jacobs.
Yeah, I think it was also funded through the Juvenile Crime Prevention
That's right,
Council.
it was. Yes.
JCPC. But no, JCCPC. So, yeah, I remember that was something that was funded through that, so I'm not sure what happened.
So we can do some research to see historically what shifted. But I do, as you mentioned, it was a couple of places it was funded, and so we can follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Yes, DA DeBerry, I just want to reiterate what my colleagues are saying about the truancy situation. A little over a month ago, I met with a resident who lives in one of the DHA communities, and she was very, very concerned that the children in that community, they're not attending schools at all. The truancy is like really, really rampant. And I don't think the overall Durham community really understands what a serious situation it is. And so it did come up during discussions, I should say, around the budget. So I think this is something that all, 3 government groups need to, and with yourself, talk about and how we come up with solutions. Because you don't want to criminalize parents, right? They probably are going through other things, but I think this is a really good starting point to get this out and figure out how do we get our kids to schools and really letting our families know, parents know why this is very important. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to continuing a discussion about this. So thanks.
Okay, and the second topic.
And the second topic is a conversation about the courts and the process of cases moving through. I know there are many different areas that are involved in that. We saw an uptick in the number of detainees that we're having in the jail, and this came up in that discussion, as well as concerns about the length of time some of these cases happen. So that sort of sets that conversation up.
And so I think we can probably ground the conversation, start the conversation in, something just in general information about, maybe how many pending homicides do we have here in Durham County, and what does it take to move from indictment to trial? Like, how long does that take? And I think we could start with that.
Sure. So I'll start with I checked the count in Durham County Detention Center this morning. There were 440 people detained as of 8:30 this morning. They will update it again this afternoon. The numbers are always high on Monday mornings because we have domestic violence cases that come in over the weekend, or other people arrested over the weekend who can't see a judge for 48 hours. But I suspect when I checked on Friday morning, it was 407 people. So for the last 6 years, the daily census has generally been around 275 to 300 people. When we were in the COVID lockdown, during the lockdown period in 2020 to 21, the census was about 175 people. So we do know that we can have consistent numbers around the high 200s to low 300s. I think there are a combination of things that are happening right now around detention in Durham County. I think the first thing is that, and I'm not sure I know that the sheriff's office did have a contract to hold some federal detainees. Now those people will be counted in the overall daily census. So I'm not sure how many of those 407 people on Friday morning were federal detainees. So those are people for whom my office the state of North Carolina has no responsibility. I suspect we still have I still think we are in the 300s around state detainees. We have fewer than 100 pending homicide cases. We have more than 100 homicide defendants. Some cases involve multiple defendants, but not every homicide defendant is being held in the Durham County Detention Center. Some of them are on electronic house arrest. Some of them have made bond and are out on bond for whatever reason. But it's not just homicide detainees. It would also be folks who are accused of other violent and serious crimes. So there would be folks who are charged with armed robbery, who are charged with sexual assault, who may be charged with some type of gun-related crime. And there are people there who are there because they failed to appear for a court date. So that's a combination. So I think we are still in the 300s, but I think we all agree, Sheriff's Office, my office, the Public Defender's Office, we all agree that we think the numbers have gone up. And some of that is, we have low bond meetings in the courthouse where we've had a lot of different things that we did to try to keep the daily population as low as we could. One of those was we were engaged in a research project with the Wilson Center at Duke University, and they did a daily scraping of the jail population. They built a program that would go in and see who was there and spit out a report for us. Like everything the county does, the jail is a human service, and human services are, not always reactive to technology, but we literally, it's like a living organism. We literally have somebody in our office every day to look at who's in the jail, because we don't know who comes in the jail overnight. We don't get any notification of that. If you were to get arrested right now and immediately bond out, we wouldn't know that. So that project is over, so we're no longer getting that kind of daily scraping. We do still have somebody assigned in our office who runs interference with the jail, but that daily scraping helped us in our low bond meetings to say who is there for, say, failure to appear on a misdemeanor, or who is there for a misdemeanor, is not a threat to public safety, and can be released. So that project being over has interfered a little bit in that. One of the other issues around detention is that for those people who are in our diversion courts who may need medically assisted substance abuse treatment, while I know that the county has used some of the opioid settlement money to create a place for people to go for Medicaid assisted opioid treatment or detox, there aren't enough of those beds. And for those people in our diversion programs, if they need medically assisted detox, many of them often don't have insurance. The only place they can do that is in the jail. So they have to go to the detention center to detox to get back on their schedule for diversion court. So all those things are going on. As to your question about homicides and how long it takes from indictment to trial, the average homicide case takes about 2 years from charging to disposition. Disposition in 90% of those cases will be a plea bargain. The time period, the 2-year time period, is mostly it is a result of North Carolina's process. In North Carolina, law enforcement charges. The DA's office doesn't charge, so most of the investigation in a case happens after charging. And all of the discovery, all of the evidence happens after someone's been charged. It has to be shared with the defendant. And we've had an explosion of digital evidence, and that takes, we now have to subpoena any number of digital companies, Meta, Amazon, and work through cell towers. All that digital evidence takes some time to acquire, as well as just the kind of physical evidence. We don't have our own lab here in Durham County, so we depend on the state lab to analyze anything that DNA or anything else that we may need. We also depend on the state medical examiner for autopsies, and they don't have enough staff, and they've had changing leadership, and so it's been a lot of things. But a case that will go to trial can take, those can often take 4 years. Durham County is also, it doesn't qualify as a legal desert because we do have a lot of lawyers in Durham County, but most of those folks are in-house at the park. We do have a little bit of a criminal defense legal desert in Durham County. We do have a public defender's office. When they conflict out of a case, however, we have very few local attorneys who are willing to take those cases. And we also, for a few years in the jail, had someone who was best described as a jailhouse attorney who was offering advice to defendants, and they were firing their lawyers and getting new lawyers. And so every time a defendant fires a lawyer and the court has to appoint a new lawyer, that new lawyer needs time to get up to speed on the case, and that pushes the case back. That person has now been convicted and moved into DPS custody, so we're hoping some of that will, some of our cases will move a little faster. We have actually, I think over the last month had 4 murder trials and several other serious case trials happened. So we are moving a little bit faster now. I know there's a lot of information in one fell swoop, but
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioners?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that we're having this conversation because, again, there are this issue has come up about how our system is currently functioning and what are the collateral consequences of that. For instance, when we had our presentation from the Office of the Sheriff, I think it was last week, we looked at the fact that we're spending over $6 million on medical care for people in the detention center. So the longer that it takes for a homicide case, for example, to actually go from indictment to trial has a huge impact on the county budget. And I would like to see the data on, if we could get trend data over the past 10 years on, the number of people who are sitting in the detention center waiting for trials who are violent offenders, and even outside as well, whether they're on pretrial release or from bail, because again, it's, none of us are in a vacuum here, and hearing that it takes 4 years is just shocking. And I think, we have to dig in to understand why is it taking that long, and if it means somebody needs more support, it's going to be cost effective to provide that support, rather than us paying to house people, because the medical cost doesn't even include just the $100 per day minimum just to house people. So, and just thinking about, we were informed that Wake County's disposition rate was 18 months. I don't know. It would be good to get some benchmarking data on other counties related to the disposition rate for homicide cases. But, it's just, we really need to understand what is happening here.
well, Commissioner Jacobs, Wake County has twice as many lawyers as I have. I have 20 lawyers. The Wake County DA has 45. So
Yeah.
she also has more legal assistants. So she's a much bigger office
Right.
than my office.
So
is.
that's, to my point, it's going to be, again, less expensive for us potentially to make sure that we have enough people to do the work to get these cases to trial than having to pay for it on the other end.
They also have twice as many judges. So we have 4 Superior Court judges in Durham County.
Yeah.
And
So I think
9
yeah.
district court judges.
Okay.
So, and this is not just a Durham County. I think it is an artifact of the way that the courts are organized in North Carolina, because we have a unitary court system, and the folks who are employed by my office are state employees and are included in the state budget. And Durham County has not received an additional allocation of assistant district attorneys since the state budget of 1999-2001.
Okay. And I think related to this, I wrote down, I think you said that a lot of the cases actually end in a plea bargain.
That's correct.
But I'm mostly concerned about the violent crime cases. That's what I'm really, because that's really, in terms of what the community is concerned about.
Sure, depending on
Yeah.
who you ask, 93 to 97% of all criminal cases end in plea bargains across the United States. If we were to try every case, we would never get every case to trial. We have 50 weeks a year of trial calendars, and we do have Superior Court every week in Durham County. There are counties and jurisdictions in which they don't have Superior Court every week. So we do have a Superior Court judge or two sitting on the bench every week for 50 weeks. And we do have, but we only have, so that means we can only do 2 trials a session. And that means if we were doing a trial we were doing 2 trials every week, all year, that would still only be 100 trials. And we have 30,000 criminal case filings in Durham County. So every case is not going to go to trial. Most cases are going to end in a plea bargain. But we also have to have our evidence done before we can enter in a plea bargain. And if you look across the country, there are jurisdictions our size generally have 3 times as many assistants as my office does. A jurisdiction the size of Mecklenburg or Wake would have hundreds more assistant district attorneys. So we are, we do a lot of work for a jurisdiction this size.
Well, I think it would be helpful. I don't want to compare us to other states, but I think other counties, I'm sure we can get the information from the court, but just how do we compare in terms of how cases are deposed or resolved or whatever? So we do have some benchmarking data would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll coordinate.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
all the
because again, this is
appropriate
something we
areas.
really need to dig into and figure out what we can do to address it. Thank you.
Okay. And so I saw Commissioner Byrd and Commissioner Valentine didn't have any questions, but I just have one question about the Odyssey software. Only because I'm a kind of a software person. I'm curious about that. How has that gone? How is it done for your team? Has it helped with processing or the clearance rate or anything like? Well, not clearance rate, but how is that done with your team, the implementation and so forth?
Since you're a software guy, you will understand this. When I walked into the DA's office and turned on my computer, I got a green screen. And that was on January 1st of 2019. To give you some idea of how far behind our technology was. And so Odyssey has, there were ADAs in my office who had better better programs on their phone than they had on their state computers. So it has brought us, I would say, at the very least into the 2010s. We do have now electronic case record. We do now have a consistent way across counties to look up cases and know what's happening in other jurisdictions. It has helped us in our busiest court, which is our traffic court. It has helped us move those cases faster. And it has provided, I think, a window into what we are doing for the public, which is not nothing, which I think is important. You can now go, if you have a case file number or you have a defendant's name, if you've been the victim of a crime, you can go look up where the case disposition and what is happening and when the next court date was, and that was very difficult to do before. So I think as far as a public-facing piece, it has been helpful. For us, it has, I think, directly impacted people's due process rights. There are people sometimes who get lost in it. Mecklenburg and Wake County are part of class action suits where people spent time in jail and had never been entered into the system, or their cases had been dismissed or resolved, disposed of, and they kept getting picked up on warrants because it had not been cleared out of the system. So it is, it's been a mixed blessing.
So if I understand it correctly, I think the software was there to help, with case management. So the person who, or the persons who were responsible for that, do they still do case management, or does the software do it on its own? Has it been able to replace, resources or reassign the person to new duties or so forth?
No. So you're asking, has it helped our caseload? Help free people to do other things?
Yeah. No, okay. So you still have a person doing case management, but also the software assists in that.
The software essentially, the software is essentially a clerk system. Okay. So it essentially helps the clerk track cases.
Okay.
On our side, it has provided us for the first time with a case management software. If you went to any law firm, since probably 2000, they have a case management software. We did not have that. We had paper files.
Okay.
And we had our paper files, and then we had the court record, which the clerk maintained, and that was also a paper file. Now the court record is the record in Odyssey.
Okay.
That continues to be what the clerk maintains, and that is the official record of the case. And for the folks on my side, we now have a case management system where I can go in and see the disposition of each lawyer's caseload in a way that I couldn't see before. So it has provided me a little bit of a management tool, but not really. I can't run statistics. I can't run any of the things that would make it helpful to me as a management tool.
Okay. Michelle?
Thank you. I just had one quick question. So when you were talking about the number of attorneys and judges that are assigned to Durham County, or that's allocated to Durham County, how does one go about asking for more, judges, assistant DAs, because that comes from the state, right? And the chief justice of the Supreme Court, right? How do we advocate for that?
Essentially, that comes from the legislature, and I've been advocating with our legislative delegation since I've been DA. I'm also a member of the North Carolina Conference of District Attorneys. We did a work study a couple years ago, and we've been asking, we have over the last 2 budget cycles, our first priority was to get raises from our office. For our office, when I took over, there were lawyers in my office making $38,000 a year. And so there were legal assistants making about that as well. And so I tried to standardize that a little bit, and we have, as a conference, our main goal was to get more money for our assistant district attorneys and our legal assistants to raise their salaries, because we had recruitment issues, obviously, as a result of that. Now we have been working on more positions, but I'll be honest with you, the Republican legislature gives ADAs to jurisdictions with Republican district attorneys. In the current Senate budget, Senator Blue, when the allocation of new ADA positions came out, Senator Blue got up and made a floor speech about the largest jurisdictions not getting any additional ADAs in that budget, and through negotiations, he got more ADAs for Wake County, Mecklenburg County, and Guilford County, and Durham was again left out. And so I called and fussed about that, but a lot of it is politics, and the politics at the legislature just over the last 20 years have not favored Durham County for additional court resources. In fact, 2 budget cycles ago, they tried to take away some judges from Durham County, and that failed. But we are one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and my office may be at this point, I think I am the 14th or 15th largest office in the state. So, well behind what our population is.
Okay. Go ahead.
Madam DA, just to go back to, you were talking about traffic court, and so is that a pretty busy court?
It is 40% of our caseload.
And so is that court run like both sessions, morning and afternoon?
Yeah, we generally, it's run morning, afternoons on Monday through Thursday, and Friday is an administrative session, which is our largest day, which is if people want to just come in and pay or just want to continue their case, they come in that day. But Monday through Thursday, traffic court has a judge on the bench.
All right, so my next question is about the disposition of DWI cases in your office. Can you share with us what those dispositions look like, whether they're plea bargains, whether they're being dismissed?
Well, I am...
Are any of them going to trial?
Technically, North Carolina law does not allow me. I can dismiss... I have 100% discretion in any case except for DWIs. Okay. DWIs must go forward. And they are resolved in a number of different ways. And generally the defense attorneys who, and Commissioner Valentine may know this, DWI is a very particular practice of law, and the lawyers who do the defense lawyers who do DWI almost always only do DWI, and they are very good at it, and the ones in Durham County are particularly good at it. But we have, all those cases generally end with somebody either pleading or being found guilty. They do go to trial more often than more serious cases because they do sometimes, because it is a particular area of law. And there's always something that can be challenged. We now have a prosecutor who is very, very good at trial in DWIs. And so I would say we're doing better than average in our DWI coverage.
Thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our top public defender in the chamber, Dawn Baxton. We look forward to talking to you down the road.
All righty, DA D. Berry, we really appreciate you being here. Thank you for your candid answers and the conversation. Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy.
I did have a few more questions, sorry. Okay, sorry. Just to follow up on what Commissioner Valentine said, so in terms of when you have staff in the courts, are you saying that there is coverage, that your staff is in the court Monday through Thursday, you were saying? 8 to 5?
Our staff is in court Monday through Friday.
Okay, 8 to 5, the whole day?
It depends on the judge, but generally the whole day.
Okay, so Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Right.
Okay.
Well, district court starts at 9:30.
Okay.
Superior Court starts at 10.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about juvenile crime because, again, a lot of this came from our discussion with staff, and when we heard presentation from our youth home director, she talked to us about how, basically she's seeing more and more severe violent crime, how our youth home is full, and even having to send kids to other counties, but very serious crimes, homicide, and that she's been in her role for a long time, and especially the last few years is seeing severity in that. So I wanted to hear from you about what your approach has been related to cases of juvenile violent crime and how you handle those.
What specifically?
Well,
That's
I think
a broad question. I'm
yeah,
happy to answer it.
yeah.
It just seems very broad,
Right.
so I want to
Okay.
answer what you.
Well, just related to petitions and is the violent crime being diverted down to juvenile court, or what is actually happening in these cases?
So the law on prosecution of juveniles has changed in North Carolina over the last few years, and I think what you're seeing at the youth home is paradoxically, I think, a evidence of the success of the change of that law. So we are very focused on we want to be focused on violence and serious crimes. So that means that what we are handling in juvenile court has become more serious over time. North Carolina's juvenile court system is a diversionary system to start with. You cannot arrest a child in North Carolina. That is why we use the term petition. And if you have a kid who's shoplifting from Target, that kid is probably never going to come to my office. That is going to be handled by juvenile justice. They're going to work with that family. Even a child who who chronically steals from Target, or who has engaged in some type of misdemeanor or low-level felony type, what would be misdemeanor or low-level felony crime for an adult. Those are generally diverted from court. Violence is not diverted from court, whether that be juvenile court or adult court. But all cases that involve children under 18 start in juvenile court now. And we do have, so everyone in our juvenile courts right now is someone who is accused of something very serious or violent. Now, the youth home, I think, is similar to the detention center in that they have some state contracts to provide beds for juveniles who reside outside of Durham County, because not every jurisdiction has juvenile beds. But the ones who are in the juvenile beds in Durham, I think we right now have 6 or 7 juveniles who are charged with murder. And the juveniles from Durham County are either charged with murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, or serious sexual assault. So those are the children who are now detained, pre-adjudication in the Durham Youth Home. We are in the process now of determining where those cases will be adjudicated. We have to hold transfer hearings in front of a judge, and the judge has to agree to transfer the case to adult court if that is what we decide to do, or to keep the case in juvenile court. And so we are in the process now of working through those transfer hearings. Do I think that we have more cases, I do not. I think some of those cases would have, before Raise the Age, started in adult court, so you would not have heard about them necessarily. They would, but I will say that it is shocking that we have 14 and 15-year-olds who are accused of murder, who are holding on petitions for murder. That is, I think, shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is where I would like us to be able to dig in on the data to really see the trend on the ages and just how our system is currently functioning in Durham, because I would like to understand what happens when a juvenile comes in who has committed some type of violent crime, and, you know, where do they go from there? If they go to juvenile court, what happens, and how many of those cases, if there are, you know, again, I don't know what the options are, but if, you know, things are diverted or just not followed up on, how many of them end up going on back and committing a very serious violent crime,
diversion is
like murder?
Yeah, diversion
know?
is the actual term of art, and so diversion means that a case is deferred from court. We do not ever divert violent crime from court, so that does not happen. Does not happen in adult court. Does not happen in juvenile court. So,
Yeah.
So we can take that piece off the table. I don't know what not followed up means on.
Yeah, I don't,
But
yeah. And I'm
when-
speaking
but
from a point of ignorance.
Sure, but we have several times in the and the public defender might be able to help me here. What is the not the violent crime roundtable? What's the other one that we did with the county with Rashana? There's another group of us that meets around, so we have a kind of a city-focused roundtable around violent crime, and then we have a county-focused roundtable around partnership around violent crime, in which we talk about that. And so we generally talk about kind of the issues that are coming up, whether those are space issues or what's happening, or and so I guess to end, so we don't lose juveniles, I guess is the point. And
So maybe we need to hear from the juvenile
TJAC, right?
Justice,
the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission
Okay.
Committee is the
Yeah,
is
because
the county one.
yeah,
And so we don't lose them who are kids who are charged with violent crimes. And I will say, for those kids who we currently have who are have been charged with murder, to go back to our early truancy issues, those are not kids. Those are generally not kids who have been in school.
Yeah.
They are not regularly going. They are not even irregularly going to school.
yeah,
They just don't go
right,
to school.
right. Yeah. So, because, you know, the gang study that was done a few years ago, it identified that, and even the Durham Police Department, I used to serve on the Violent Crime Roundtable. I was on it for like 8 years. And Jason from the city, who's, you know, amazing with data, had presented case studies how you can trace somebody who started out in elementary school having, you know, behavioral problems or academic achievement issues, you know, maybe even learning disabilities, whatever. And then you see them later on getting involved in trespassing. And then, you know, by the time they're, you know, it just kept accelerating. And then, you know, they're involved in violent crime you know, later on, not too much later. And so I think we have to really look at things as red flags and not just ignore them, and how we're treating these as a system. And so I just hope that we can really work together on understanding what is currently happening, not each in our own silos, but collectively. And because I'd rather spend the millions of dollars that we're spending in our jail for things like health care for people with chronic illnesses who are sitting there for years. I'd rather invest that upstream in our children. So anyway, I look forward to all of us really working together on this. Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree. I think the number one indicator of your involvement in the criminal justice system as an adult is your involvement in as a child, whether that means your actual involvement or you had a parent or a caregiver who was involved in the criminal justice system, or you grew up in a community in which there was a high involvement of police activity or criminal justice activity. So we do know when you do kind of a post-mortem on cases, on homicide cases, that you see that often that child started out with medical issues and had DSS involvement early, may have had school issues early. So.
Well, thank you again, DA DeBerry. We really appreciate your time, your work, and your answers here today. Thank you. Manager Hager.
Fantastic. Our next conversation will be an update on a funded agency, Haiti Reborn Justice Movement. And we have Lisa L.A. Jones with us today. Good to see you, Lisa, co-founder and executive director of Movement Operations. And Steve Chalmers, pleasure seeing you as well, co-founder, executive director of Movement Programs. And so information was shared with the board last week that gave overview on the budget as well as performance information, and the presentation is in your system. So we'll turn it over to you, L.A.
Thank you very much. Time flies, doesn't it? Seem like we were sitting here just like this yesterday. So Steve and I are very glad to be here. First of all, I want to say good afternoon to the chair.
Can you move the mic towards you? The microphone? Yeah, there you are.
Apologies.
Yeah.
I thought that military voice was projecting. I apologize. All right, let's start again. Can you hear me now? Good. Good afternoon to the chair and also members of the board. We want to thank you for inviting us here today to present and for your continued investment into Haiti Reborn Justice Movement. As was said, my name is L.A. Jones. I'm a co-founder and executive director of operations. I'm with Steve Chalmers, co-founder, executive director of programs. Together, we bring almost 70 years of collective experience in public safety, community healing, and transformational leadership. Today isn't just about numbers, it's about people. It's about the community members who trusted us, showed up, and dared to change their lives. It's about showing you what your investment has made possible and why we're asking you to walk with us a little further. And we also never want to miss an opportunity to thank you publicly for being our first major funder in this movement. Do I do the clicker? Yeah. Wrong one, maybe. Oh, too far. Thank you. Our mission, and I'll say this for the new county commissioners here, is to develop and coordinate a total Durham partnership comprised of programs that already exist here in Durham. the programs, the resources, and the organizations to enable access and seamless entry to comprehensive or wraparound services for community member success. When we started HRJM, we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We were trying to realign it. Durham already has the heart. What we needed was a bridge. We needed something to connect the services, the providers, and the people. We needed organization. That's what our mission speaks to. Coordination, access, and a commitment to make sure that no one falls through the cracks. The reason we're here today, one of the reasons is because I just want to say we're not here just to ask. We're here to show you why continued investment in HRJM is not charity, it's strategy. We were asked to speak on several things today, like how the county's funding was spent, how we've grown, and what we've learned. We've organized our time together to reflect all of that, but most importantly, are you stopping me? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought someone said stop.
No, we were having some technology issues on our side, so we're trying to be discreet, but apparently we're not. And so commissioners, if you are having issues viewing, just pull it up online, but we'll work through our stuff. My apologies.
No, that's all right. Just wanted to make sure you guys were good. Ready? Gotcha. What you'll see in the slides, hopefully, and in the financial packet that you received is that every dollar has been spent with intentionality. That intentionality comes from lived experience. It comes from community listening and a promise not to waste what we've been entrusted with. Before we move further, we want to acknowledge that every statistic we'll share today represents more than a data point. It represents a life. One of the hardest lessons that we've learned and that we continue to teach others is that systems fail people by making them feel invisible. Steve and I were a part of two major systems that were responsible for that. That's why we don't talk about cases, we talk about neighbors, about family, about folks who deserve dignity, healing, and opportunity. We share these numbers because we must, because that's how funding decisions are made, but we do so carefully, never forgetting that each line item is someone's story. Someone who may have once believed they didn't belong here. We remind them and ourselves that they do. If you're wondering why some of our county dollars are still on the books, I want to be very clear that it is not because we do not need them. Okay. It's because we used every other resource first. We had federal funds with tight deadlines, ARPA funds that couldn't be rolled over, and county dollars with the most flexibility. We sequenced our spending to avoid waste and to make sure the doors stayed open long after the clocks on those other pots ran out. You can see it clearly in the financial packet we submitted. Over $749,000 spent already this fiscal year when you look at our projections. We broke down those expenses, justified every major category, and prioritized sustainability. This approach wasn't just good stewardship. It was strategy born of necessity. We even applied for 2 major federal grants to try and offset future needs, but those funds were never distributed under the current federal administration. We are currently in various stages of awaiting the response of 7 other funding possibilities. So now we're creating a fundraising toolkit and growing our donor base to protect our future. And just to underscore this entire operation, 178 participants, 750 services, which included medical health care, job training, and housing support, is being powered by 10 full-time staff members, 2 of which are Steve and I. We are especially proud of the employees on our team who are formally justice involved. They walk through these doors each and every day as living proof that people can rewrite their stories when they're believed in, supported, and resourced. They repay that faith by going out and doing the right thing, not every day, not one day at a time, but one choice at a time. This year, the county covered just 4 salaries, 2 of which were mine and Steve's. To keep this work going, we cut consultants, left positions unfilled, and yes, even downgraded employee benefits. Because when there's not enough to go around, we make sure the participants come first. Because if I may speak plainly, trickle-down economics does not work, but trickle-down oppression works every time. That is the cycle that we're trying to break.
Again, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Steve Chalmers. I am the Executive Director of Programs for Haiti Reborn Justice Movement. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program side of the organizations and kind of give you an idea of what we do on a regular basis as it relates to serving the participants that come through our doors on a day-to-day basis. This particular slide here shows that for this year, that we have served 178 participants. And of those, we've provided over 750 different services through the partnerships and organizations that exist in the community. One of the things I think that's very glaring, if you look at the slide here, has to do with the mental health and wellness and drug and alcohol treatment aspect of what we do. One of the things that we're committed to doing is making certain that we prepare individuals for success. And one of the things that we feel that may be ignored more times than often is addressing the mental health and the stability of those individuals. And before we try to connect them to major resources and support in the communities like jobs and housing, even though we're working on that and that's part of the plan, we focus on making certain that we address some of the underlying causes of the previous failures that they've had. So those 2 numbers are dropping out. The other thing that's really, really glaring about this is when you start to look at housing, that number probably is one of the lowest numbers that we see represented here. And I want to make certain that you understand that's not because that the majority of the people that we are seeing have housing issues, but it speaks to our capacity as a community to address the housing needs of individuals. And of all the partnerships that we've actually developed over the course of our existence, everyone has waiting lists and also a lack of capacity to serve. So we are not unique as it relates to those numbers. And when you look across the board to other organizations, even though they are serving, their numbers are low, but it does not in any way address the need that exists in this community as housing. We would say that housing is the number one need that's unmet in this community, and we're talking from emergency housing to transitional housing to rental properties, especially with the population that we serve, being some being involved in the criminal justice system and involved in the reentry process, and others that are underserved and again facing a lot of obstacles. But for the most part, we are basically partnering with a lot of organizations. We're connecting individuals with the resources that exist in the community, and we feel real good about being able to provide these services to these individuals. Next one. Again, our participants have demonstrated a lot of growth, and we are proud of that across the board. But the journey often begins with our Bridge program, and we'll talk a little bit about that. This is our flagship initiative that we've developed with Durham Technical Community College. And I tell you, folks, they are a fabulous partner in this community. And their president, President Buxton, is probably at about every graduation. He's expressed continued commitment to Haiti Reborn Justice Movement. Again, this is not just a program, it's a launch pad, because again, what we try to do is to make certain that individuals are stabilized, that once they come in, they have the tools that they need in order to be successful. Sometimes this might include GED programs, but what we try to do is to create opportunities for them to actually go into an environment that's welcome, that's embracing, and actually receive the tools that they need. Next. BRIDGE program, again, stands for Building, Reinventing, Improving, and Developing Great Employees and Entrepreneurs. Again, it's represents our highest standard of holistic, justice-informed workforce training. One of the parts of the BRIDGE program is the pivot assessment. This is what the first thing that individuals actually undertake when they get to Durham Tech. And the pivot two assesses and evaluates their interests, aptitudes, and readiness for career, employment, and education. The interesting thing, and I think people say may be the driving force, but what we found is that a lot of the individuals that we serve would be there with or without the $15 an hour stipend. Because what they look at at the justice movement is really an opportunity to fulfill a dream. To actually come into an environment that is actually like family. But we do provide a $15 an hour stipend while they're there at Durham Tech, and they're there for 6 weeks, 4 days a week for 6 hours. Also a part of that is a transportation allotment, and where we provide $25 a week for transportation. Many of them, again, Ubering and carpooling and so forth. Also, we take care of all educational supplies, and we also provide lunch at Durham Tech on each day for those individuals. And this has really made a difference even with the program. Again, 90 plus hours of in-person instruction. This including communicating with purpose, which basically helps them to create better communication skills, to learn how to advocate for themselves better, working smart, again, gets more into the dynamics of employment and being a good employee, technology awareness, which, boy, they go at that like you wouldn't believe, and they really enjoy that aspect of it, making dollars work and achieving Platinum Plus, and also everyone is connected with the NC Works Training Center for careers once they come into the Justice Movement. This shows basically we've actually had 7 cohorts since inception. Tomorrow is the graduation of cohort number 7, and I know you guys are probably here hard at work, but we offer invitations always, and you receive invitations to those graduations. But from 11 to 12 tomorrow, we will be having a graduation exercise at Durham Tech. This shows pretty much for each one of the cohorts, the number that we started with and the number that we ended with. And again, as you can see, we've had a couple where we had 100% completion, and we've had some where we lost maybe 1 or 2 during the process. The one thing about this is that doing the ones where we lost people, in most cases it had to do with medical emergencies, even with the individuals or families, or something dynamic in their life that caused them to not be able to actually complete that. And then some of what we try to do is to bring them back in and actually get them on board to actually come back in and complete. Because once you're a part of the Haiti Reborn Justice Movement, you're always a part. Regardless of what happened, even if you fall off the wagon, we bring you back on. Okay. Again, this speaks to some of the completions of some of the programs. As you can see, we have quite a few programs that we are involved in with Durham Tech. And one of the, as you can see, they basically talks about the ones that we have individuals enrolled, completed, and also some that were dissatisfied and did not make it. And as you can see, the majority of these, we either have people that are involved in these programs, or they have completed these programs in this particular year. One of the programs we actually started and completed with Durham Tech, and we would have had, which actually is probably would make this our 8th cohort, is that we actually started a health care. What was that? What is that one? Well, that's a public health program with Durham Tech, where we actually brought individuals in, and with a partnership with Durham Tech, and we graduated about 6 individuals in that particular program. So again, great partners. One of the things that I would say about Durham Tech too is that once we introduce them into Durham Tech, one of the first things they do is to start to look at alternative funding, so that we're not having to pay every dollar for their courses and the programs that they go into. The other thing is that then what they do is that they use Durham Tech dollars next to make certain that HRJM dollars are the last dollars that are spent. And again, this is a real good partner that actually take the responsibility for doing that. Go ahead.
And NC Works provide funding dollars.
Yeah, even NC Works. So again, we've had a lot of the individuals, again, we have strong partnerships, and a lot of these partnerships that we've established have funds available to also support the individuals that we bring into the organization. Again, a lot of the expanded training and certification pathway, one of the things that we found is that a large number of the individuals that come to HRJM are looking to be entrepreneurs. And this is great news, because a lot of these individuals have been facing a lot of challenges where it is not as easy as for most of us to actually become employed. So one of the things that we are trying to do is really to work strongly with entrepreneurship. The National Institute of Community Economic Development is one of our strongest partners, as well as Durham Tech and others, to help actually develop these partnerships. One of the things that we've referred about 10 individuals to work with the National Institute. Of those 10, within the time that they've been with us, 8 of them have obtained the LLCs. And that is tremendous. When you start to look at these individuals and coming to the table with dreams and saying that I know how to do this, but I just don't know how to make it happen. So 8 LLCs and, with the individuals that have come to us at the Justice Movement. Other things is apprenticeship programs. We are working with Durham Tech now. We have 3 individuals in the electrical systems technology, and they have not failed a course. And they're doing very well. They're, again, individuals that come and said, I would love to do this. I've always wanted to do this, but I've never had the opportunities. These are the people that we actually try to provide support to. 3 in the construction trades. SKK Electrical and Durham Tech are one of the partners with us on that, as far as the apprenticeship programs. And we have individuals including employment, HVAC, welding, carpentry, and other pre-construction training. So we've tried to take advantage of every tool that Durham Tech has to offer. And again, this kind of leads to industry recognized certification and direct job placements. Basically, our workforce team on a day-to-day basis work to create partnerships with employers in the community to actually help us to impact the lives of these individuals. What you see here are some of the employees that we're working with on a day-to-day basis that are and some are saying that the people that we're sending to them are the best that they've had. And we are real proud of the individual. But again, on the front end, what we try to do is stabilize and prepare them to be those individuals. I also, while I'm talking, like for our staff to stand up back here, team, stand up. These are the individuals that make it happen on a day-to-day basis, and they're the ones that we have. Others that are not here today because they're actually either in the field or some other engagements. One of the, again, the good things about it is that they actually stay connected with these individuals on a day-to-day basis. And if they have any needs or concerns, and they're also involved with the employers on a day-to-day basis. And again, we've got very good satisfaction from the employers that we have. Again, some of the workforce training partners that we have, we contract with Step Up Durham. And I think we send about 10 a month to Step Up. And And as you, ones of you familiar with Step Up, they have like 3 different parts of their organization. Believe it or not, some of our people don't get through the 3rd part because they get jobs, and because they're so motivated with the support they got, they get jobs before they finish. So they're out the door. So again, straight partnerships. As you see here, Vance Granville Community College, our newest partnership, that we're working with them with their CDL program. We have one individual who last week started the Class A CDL program, and I actually got a call from individual from Kelvin Sharp from Vance Granville Community College, and he wanted to commend one of our workforce team who actually came over with the applicant, the participant, sat through the entire orientation and vetted their program to make certain that it was of quality and what we need. And he wanted to call me just to say, look, we've never had this done, and we are very impressed with your staff for coming over and being that connected and interested in the individuals. We have one who's actually starting today with the Class B certification at Vance Granville. Stephen Shealy is with him again today. Working him through that entire process. So this is the type of service that we provide at the HRJM. It's just not a referral service. It's not just passing people off. We stay connected with them to make certain that they receive the support and the resources they need. That's it for me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So we want to talk about how HRJM has evolved in the couple of years that we've been here. Last year, Steve and I, we were sitting down doing our organizational assessment, and we realized that we were not having the success with some of the participants that we wanted to. Those are some of the ones that you saw that fell off of Bridge or out of other continuing education programs. And that's because once we would see that someone was likely to have a crisis, we would pull them from the program before they could fulfill that self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm not good enough. And we helped them get into treatment that was going to help them be able to go back and succeed. So as we were sitting and we were talking, we were wondering about why we weren't getting exactly what we felt like we should be. And it would have been easy to place the burden on the participants or someone else, oh, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But we decided that first we were going to look in the mirror. That reflection led us to a pivotal discovery, and that's that our assessments were just the starting line. Many of them, we always knew they needed more than intake, but they also didn't just need to be assessed, they needed to go through a level of healing first. So they weren't prepared, and we made some bold decisions. We partnered with Dr. Rodney Harris. Dr. Harris, a Black male mental health professional who not only understands our community but is trusted in it. He reviews every clinical care assessment and helps us determine if someone is truly ready to start workforce training or continuing education, or if they first need to address trauma, addiction, or mental health. We shifted our model. We accepted that education and workforce numbers might dip if we truly put the people first. And that's exactly what happened. But what rose in their place were our numbers for counseling and recovery and healing, which is in line with our commitment to do things differently. And the community kept speaking. They told us they wanted a bridge-style program for disengaged youth, ages 16 to 20. This very group is responsible for over 60% of the crime in Durham. They also told us that they would like to see a reintroduction of a public health approach to violence prevention, or something like the Cure Violence, one that treats violence like we treat opioid addiction, which is something that our city, county, state is actively involved in right now, are funds that will treat opioid addiction. And that's to treat this the problems they're having as a contagious condition that requires funding, care, and understanding. Because let's be honest, some people in our country get treatment. Others get prison or local detention instead of acknowledgement that often that crime is a cry for help. And the difference is too often what they look like and where they live. This is the great Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris is our clinical advisor. He's the chief clinical officer at the Empowerment Training Consultant Group. He's also an associate professor at the Chicago School. He does more than review assessment. He helps us practice what we preach. With his support, we've begun the process of becoming a certified trauma-informed organization, because we recognize that trauma doesn't just live in individuals, it lives in systems and families and neighborhoods. This matters because it changes how we serve. Trauma-informed care means we build trust first. We respond instead of reacting. We see people through a lens of empathy instead of judgment. In short, Dr. Harris has been a game changer for us, and it's been fantastic to have him through. He's a real truth teller. Another in how we've evolved, strategic decisions that we've made. Every change we've made has come from listening to data, yes, but mostly from listening to people. If you listen, people will tell you what they need. Every single one of us is the own subject matter expert of our lives. No one else can tell us what we need to be okay. We stopped using quick intake screenings and started offering full clinical care evaluations by licensed professionals, and we honored participant requests to work with Black male therapists who really, let's be honest, are often like a unicorn in our world. And we found one that exceeds our expectation. We tightened our belt, we cut our consultants, we left jobs unfilled. We did all of this to protect our people and this organization. We also welcome 2 new board members, leaders who bring exactly the kind of expertise we need to grow smart, not grow fast. We're proud to introduce 2 exceptional leaders who've recently joined our board of directors. First is Mr. Dennis McCaskill. Dennis is the Senior Director of Financial Partnerships at Catalytics. He brings experience in all of the areas that you see here. And then we have Jada Smith. Jada Smith is a Chief Program Officer at 110. Almost lost it. At 110. She has a lot of expertise as well. We recruited Dennis because of his financial expertise, and Jada because of her nonprofit expertise. We are actually in search of one more board member at this time, and it is someone that is highly experienced in human resources. Now, let's make it official. This is the part where I smile, I take a breath, and I ask for your support. Ready? We are requesting $500,000 to sustain our core operations for this year, which is definitely less than the previous years, and it's a result of the things that we've cut. We're also asking for $1 million to launch 2 vital initiatives. One, a youth bridge that will work with disengaged youth from age 16 to 20. And the second is the public health model for violence prevention that we mentioned. These aren't ideas on a whiteboard. These are plans backed by data, demand, and a deep community need. We've done the work. We've earned your trust, we hope. Now we're asking for the investment to scale it. Before we move further, I want to thank the Durham County Community Intervention and Support Services Director, Crystal Harris, and also Assistant County Manager Joanne Pierce. For all of they've acted as our liaisons and overall handlers for the last couple of years. And we just want to thank them for their patience and the challenging work of keeping us in line over the last couple of years. Steve and I may have been subject matter experts in law enforcement, but we're in a whole new ball game here with nonprofit leadership. Also, and they are a credit to their organization. You're very fortunate to have them. We're grateful for your time and attention, of course, as always, and we know how many needs you're balancing, how many programs are asking. But we also know this, within the current fiscal year, which has yet to end, we've already wrapped 178 high-touch citizens in 750 services for which we have the receipts. HRJM doesn't just ask without showing what we've done and what we'll do. So now we will turn it over to you. We welcome your questions and your insights and your partnership as we hope to continue building this into something powerful and sustainable.
Thank you so much for this presentation. This was a very good overview. I will open it up to the commissioners' questions. However, Chair Alum is actually virtual, and she has some questions to start out with, and then we'll go around the dais. If that Chair Alum.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry I'm not there in person. I'm recovering from surgery, but thank you so much for coming and presenting. I'm sorry if this was included in some of the materials, maybe that was sent, but do we have like a breakdown of the operational budget for the overall programming, staffing, for Haiti Justice Reborn?
Do you
And I
mean,
can just go through all of my questions, or would you like me to pause?
if you'll pause, we'll answer each one.
Yes, perfect, yeah.
Yes, we actually did. It's in the financial packet that we submitted separately because we knew we were short on time, so we knew we didn't have time to go over all that individually. But we did include it, and anything additionally that you all would like, we are more than happy to provide.
Thank you. And then when this project initially came to us, what was it, in 22 or 23 for funding, it came to the board with the understanding that this was there was a matching grant opportunity for if Durham County and city were able to provide funding, that there was an opportunity for federal grant funding to match however much the city and county provided. Were y'all able to secure that grant? Because also the initial goal and presentation to us was that, you know, this was an initial kickoff funding from the county to get the project off the ground, and then there was going to be work done to seek other funding sources to keep the programming running and not, you know, necessarily to be reliant on the county for recurring funding.
Some of that is correct. The part that is not correct is that it wasn't that we were going to get that we were expecting. I apologize, my braces are in the way. We were not expecting matching federal dollars. However, we did have a businessman in the community that did say that they were willing to do some matching with corporate dollars. And we can speak more about that later if you like.
Yeah, and so how much did that business partner end up providing in matching?
He has not as of this time.
Okay, that's all the questions I have right now at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Alum. Go to Commissioner Burton.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Lee, and thank you so much for your presentation. I'm new to the board, so if I ask some questions, because I just don't know, and I'm just trying to get more of a historical background. So when did the county start funding Hayti Reborn? Was that in 2022, 2023?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
2022.
2023.
2023.
It's been 23, 24, and then this is 25.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And so that year, you've received $1 million each year.
$2 million the first year, $1 million last year, and $1 million from the city.
Okay, so the first year, $2 million.
Correct.
The first year from the county, and then $1 million from the city and $1 million from the county. Okay.
Correct.
And did you receive any ARPA funding?
We did. That's
okay.
the $1 million that we've gotten so far from the city.
Okay.
However, we do have a request into the city this year, and we submitted this as an intralocal possibility.
Okay.
So,
And then I wanted to know, when I was reading the slides about, so I can have a better understanding what Hayti Reborn does. It takes justice-involved persons. Like, I'm really confused about that. So
Okay.
is it, because when I read it, is it, it's like, okay, they're going through the bridge program, they're, okay, trying to find job placement. Right. Is it, like, how are individuals referred to Hayti Reborn? Right. So I really want to know how that works.
that's very good questions. And a lot of the other county commissioners have had access to information previously that you haven't gotten. And just so you know, we'll answer here. But we're also very happy to send you more information about HRJM. But the short story is that HRJM basically works with Black, brown people that were involved that have been involved in the justice system, and people that are socioeconomically disadvantaged or oppressed from any community. It doesn't matter. As far as the way that we get people, a lot of times they're referred. You can also go to our website, and on our website is a place where they can put their name in, and we'll have one of our care managers reach back out to them. Also, some of our partners in the community, they refer people to us as well. We go to job fairs, we go to a lot of different events in the community.
I would like to add to that is that probably, as you know, we're operating right now, the majority of the individuals that will come to us now is by word of mouth. From past participants, people who have successfully navigated through the process and had their lives changed, and they're reaching out to families, friends, and others in their communities, and these individuals are now coming to us. We get people from Department of Social Services. We've done presentation to several departments there, where now we have a better working relationship with them to help, but they also, as they encounter individuals in need, they send them. The Criminal Justice Resource Center. So what we do is basically correction. We've partnered with federal probation, parole, and we work with state. So all these individuals that we have actually gone out to, when individuals come into their organizations, like for parole, understanding that they don't have the capacity to really do a lot of things, they actually send those individuals. So they're not just justice involved, but they're basically any people that represent these populations that are in need and want some support.
So it's a way for people who have been very much marginalized, yes, to come in, get the support that they need to help them be successful. All right, because getting the support, getting the, I guess, care, the knowledge, the skills, or what have you, to help them be successful, right?
Absolutely. And again, the main thing is that they have one location they can come, and we address all of their needs at that one location by actually bringing together the partnerships and collaboration of existing programs and resources in the community. The one thing that we always say is that we are not actually service providers. We are actually organizers and connectors. So we actually facilitate their growth and their stability, and we connect them with the resources they need.
And the final question I had was about bridge. I want to know a little bit more about that as well, like the bridge program that you do in conjunction with Durham Tech. So is that a way for people to figure out what skills they're good at, and it's kind of like a job inventory or something like that?
The one thing that I can say about the bridge program is that it kind of serves as an awakening for a lot of folk, because a lot of folk come in and they feel that, for example, we had an individual who came and she wanted to be, she wanted to work as a not a nurse practitioner, but just a CNA. And once she became engaged with the Bridge Initiative in Durham Tech, they reported back to us that she actually had the capability of becoming a doctor. So this person, instead of being a CNA, had navigated into the nursing program. But so I say it's awakening because a lot of individuals come and they just want to really just kind of get a job. The vast majority of them that elect to stay in school and to go into some of these other programs and also get certifications and also degrees. So it's again, it basically again provides some of the things that some of them had wanted and some of them never even thought of.
So it's like coaching in a way and mentoring people to know what it is they want to do and help them find that way.
Well, some of them lack the basic skills that would be required to be good employees. And that is what happens. Some people call them soft skills. We call them essential skills that are necessary. The one thing that is happening with us that we absolutely did not plan for in the beginning was that we have so much continuing education going on. We originally planned for Bridge. And now these individuals have found out what it's like to go to school and have someone that is checking on how they're doing in school, that is coming to their defense when there's a problem, that is encouraging them and praising them when they do well. And what they've done is they found out they love it. And so they've gone into continuing education, and it was such a need that we got with Durham Tech and NC Works to figure out how we could possibly pay for it to have them continue in school for as long as they wanted to go. Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you so much for the presentation, all the information. I have a number of questions. One is just to follow up on Commissioner Burton's question about the funding, because are you saying that you never received federal funding?
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
The federal, let me clarify, there was, when we initially came to the board, there was a grant, or it was a foundation, it was a PERC foundation, I can't remember where the acronym was from, that we were partnering with the city, which did not materialize. There were federal dollars that were awarded to Durham County that were passed through to Hayti Reborn. And that happened 2 years ago. And that amount, off the top of my head, it was close to $750,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if all of those dollars have been finalized, spent yet, but I know that was a tranche of dollars that were also allocated.
Right. They have not. PERC was going to provide funding based upon whether or not the city of Durham could match what they were going to give, and the matching did not occur and has not.
Okay, I think we need to get clarity on, since the beginning, how much public funding has been allocated, whether it's federal, city, county.
And we can do that even right now. Okay, that would be good. So the city has given $1 million through the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. That happened in 24-25. Durham County gave in 24-25 $1 million.
Okay, and then 23-24.
And then in 23-24, Durham County allocated $2 million, and that was the year that we were originally supposed to partner with the city, and that was the PERC funding.
Okay.
And those were the public dollars that.
And that
Africa-
includes the federal money.
I'm sorry, and then in that year, it was 750,000 that came from the federal, which was,
Okay.
700.
I'm sorry, 700,000 from the
Okay.
federal government.
So in the
was
past
the
2
first
years, you all have received $4.7 million.
The Burns grant was prior to the first funding that we received from you all, is when it was awarded. So, but there was a change in leadership. And then when Crystal came on, she was kind enough to get everything set up for us so that then we could finally get those funds in and pay for them, but they were already allocated because we were given the money 2 years earlier. if that
Okay, I'm
makes
just trying
sense.
to get an idea of the public funding. 4.7, is that correct?
Over the past 3 years.
Altogether over 3 years,
Okay, over the
yes.
past 3 years, okay. So then we go back to 22, 23.
That is when the federal award occurred, but the actual dollars were received over the.
I'm interested in when they were actually received, when the money was in hand. 4.7 over the past 2 years.
We'll get you a chart.
Okay, all right. That
Yeah,
is-
because I think we went
yeah,
over it,
okay.
but we can get you a chart.
Okay, that would be helpful. Yeah, and I also want to just follow up because of what Commissioner Alam said, because we were only 2 commissioners that were here then, and I remember that, we wanted to support you all getting started, but that, the understanding was that this was not going to be ongoing operational support. We have a whole process involved with nonprofit funding, RFP process, and also we have certain policies around what percentage of our nonprofit funding can actually go for things like salaries. We have certain criteria around that. And, honestly, we are going to be facing a huge crisis in 2026 because we've been fortunate to be able to provide a lot of ARPA funding we have wonderful nonprofits in Durham doing great work that are helping support the mission of the county government. But we're not going to be able to sustain anyone at the levels that we have previously. And so I know that our board will be looking forward in terms of how do we move forward, because everyone's going to be saying, hey, we need your help. And then we're also facing, as you know, a lot of alarming threats of really fundamental cuts to our security net. And then, of course, we've got the schools. So we are in an austerity budget. So I appreciate that you have presented us, what is for at least this year, what is sustaining versus expansion.
Yes.
We've done the same thing with Durham Public Schools, looking at what is needed to sustain versus expansion. And, right now, we're really not in a time to be expanding. Even our county departments many of them have been told flat funding, we have a
Yes.
hiring freeze. So that's just the reality that we're in right now. I just wanted to frame that reality of what we're in right now.
Yeah.
So
Can I address that really quickly,
Yes,
what you
yes.
just said, though?
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Absolutely.
I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I absolutely get it. I really do. I do want to point out that one of the things that makes HRJM different is that the nonprofits that we are partnering with in the community, there are some of those that we actually fund as well with the dollars we have. Step Up. We have a line item in our budget for Step Up. We also have a line item, we work with alcohol treatment organization. That's right. None of these people, except for public entities like social services, are doing this work for free. So I just want to let you know that because we have a line item that says that subawards and contractors and subawards, those go to individuals that we're partnering with to do this work. So I do want that to be pointed out, is that we definitely know that there are other nonprofits that need help, and the ones that we're actually working with that have agreed to come in under this umbrella and work as a coalition, they do get funding from us to help some of them meet capacity, because otherwise they're great at what they do, but they do not have the capacity to serve the number of people that we send them.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the budget from January through March of 2025, and if you could provide us, because that's not we don't see that here, but exactly, when you say that you are providing for payment for services for clients, if you could provide us exactly what that data is, because I saw the list of the referrals, and so just seeing.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I do want to explain why you don't see it there, though, because we were asked to submit how we've spent county money this past year, and we explained at the beginning that we spent other dollars in other ways. So what you see is what your county money directly went to. That's why you don't see it on.
Okay.
That's not the entire budget.
Right.
That's the county's part.
Okay, well, it'd be good to see the whole thing, because what we see here is mostly it going to salaries. So that's why it would be good to see if you had ostensibly $1 million from the city, $1 million from the county, then to see exactly how those dollars are being spent. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
You and I, we've done this a few times,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobs, so I knew you were going to say that. Within the financial packet of information that I sent, it actually contains a justification for all of the salary spending. And I will say this, we are well within the norm for grassroots nonprofit salary spending, but I absolutely want you to understand everything you want to understand, but I do want to be clear about that, and I made sure that we included all of the documentation to justify and back that up, along with sources of where it came from.
Okay, well,
Sure.
I am looking at what you provided, so thank you.
Sure.
So, and then, do you know exactly how much you are spending on the bridge program? Because obviously that you've had a lot of success with that, but I would like to understand how much is it actually costing for just that program, and even per person?
We can sit down and figure that out. What we have to do, though, when we do the budget, is we allocate for up to 15 people per cohort for a year. So we allocate what we're hoping it'll be, but there's no way that we can anticipate how many people are going to be ready to go mentally or with regard to their addiction or something of that nature.
Well, I don't,
So,
yeah, I mean,
but we
just
will.
this past year, how much, I assume you're tracking how much you're spending on the program, so
So
just.
you want just this past year, not what we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to budget for?
Yeah, I'm just looking at what you submitted for this past year, and then, I guess we didn't get a detailed budget for FY 25, 26. I didn't
At the
see.
beginning of the year, you did. We gave it to.
No, for the proposed budget.
For the
Oh.
for the proposed budget,
Yeah.
there was an ask for $1.5 million.
But we didn't see.
that I believe you sent. It came in as a direct communication from LA to the board members. So
Right.
we'll send that.
out.
I saw
Okay.
that, but I didn't see the
Okay.
actual budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, do you keep track on just the demographics of the people you're serving? Things like age, gender, race, and just even like background, like whether somebody is justice involved or not? Do you have that demographic data?
Yes,
Okay, that would be great to see that as well.
okay, absolutely,
Thank you.
sure.
Valentine.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chambers, Ms. Jones, thank you for your many years and commitment to the people in our community. I mean, if people don't know, they need to know that you are one of our gems, and we appreciate you 100%. Durham-wide, black, white, Hispanic, men, women, you're doing the hard work. I agree with my colleague in the sense that these are challenging budget times. And with the uncertainty at the federal level, I mean, certainly I hope not, but the ball could drop any moment with regards to our finances that come from the federal government, and I'm cognizant of that. But in light of that, you had talked earlier about the ask and partners, and so I have already talked with several of my colleagues that I plan on supporting, not necessarily the entirety of your ask, but to ensure that you receive some funds in this budget cycle. Certainly there needs to be a discussion about the way forward. I wasn't around, as you already suspect, when there was discussion about how long the county would be able to provide support. And so certainly that's something that we're going to look forward to having discussions in the future.
May I please say one thing to
Certainly.
Address that, sir?
Yes.
The very first time that we sat here, and I remember I was actually speaking to County Commissioner, what's Heidi's last name? Carter. I could remember Heidi, but I couldn't get Carter out. She and I were speaking, and I asked for, she said, will this be a continuing thing? And I said, thank you for asking. Actually, I'm asking for 5 years to get this up and running and sustained and standing on its own. So there was never a conversation about it just being 1 year. I will accept whatever you're willing to offer, but that's what the conversation was.
Well, I certainly appreciate that clarity. And to the extent that here in Durham County, and I believe this is true about the city, although in my discussions with Commissioner Jacobs, I always remind her that the city's in the county. We value equity. And in my mind, that's what your program represents. A commitment to the poor, a commitment to the downtrodden, a commitment to the disenchanted, a commitment to people who look like me, a commitment to a second chance. And I believe that that is what this program stands for. And I can get behind that because Durham County values that, and I value that also as an individual. And so thank you for your comments about your commitment to the taxpayer or making sure that you're using the taxpayers' funds wisely. Absolutely. We absolutely will hold you to that. The fact that you use other resources first, which is what we ask of you, we're going to hold you to that as well. I am particularly excited about the Bridge program that President Buxton and I have had a brief conversation about this partnership. And it sounds like that new partnership with Granville County Community College. Yes, Vance Granville, yes. And so that gives our young people an opportunity at a second chance. and the work that you do with your other partners in helping to curb the problems with mental health, the mental health crisis that we're experiencing here in Durham County, and our young people in the areas of drug and alcohol. And so all of these partnerships help to make for a healthy Durham, to put our young people in the best position that they can be in order to add to our tax base in the future. And so that's what this program stands for. And lastly, in this current cohort, how many people was it? I might have missed that.
I think there are 9 graduating.
Okay,
I
9.
think there are
Okay.
9 graduating.
Okay.
We
Well-
have 15 slots.
Okay. Well, time permitting, I plan to be there tomorrow.
That would be
no
awesome.
guarantee,
That'd
but
be
time
awesome.
permitting, I plan to be there tomorrow. And one last thing, I think Dennis McCaskill is an excellent addition to your board.
He's a good guy.
I mean, his skills and knowledge, his connections in the business community, I'm hoping that they bear fruit.
Absolutely.
With respect to your funding needs, and also Ms. Smith's nonprofit leadership as well. So thank you for appearing here today.
Thank you so much. I want to say before we leave that I do want the last thing to be an acknowledgement for the difficulty and the decisions that you have to make. Unfortunately, though, our people that need aren't going anywhere. And especially right now, while times are hard, HRJM is truly doing the most work as a grassroots effort right now, and that's really important. And so even if we ever feel like you're going to say no, I have to have you know I'm going to ask every single time. So it's never going to be personal, but I'm going to sit here and go, and here you go, LA, didn't I tell you don't come back here? But I'm going to sit right here every time. So I am grateful to you all.
You're a good advocate.
Thank you.
I mean, that's your job, is to ask. It's not your job to tell yourself no. It is our job to figure out if we can do it. I do have a couple of questions. So the 178 participants that you listed, is that for this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's for this year.
Okay. And what is, with the 178, what is the cost to handle the 178 178? If we had a budget of $2 million, that's about a little over $11,000 per person. What are those? How are those costs?
That is a great question. First, I would like to say, and then I'll let Steve address, is that one of the things that has been the most challenging about this is that this is a unique and innovative approach. We can't really say how much, because when that one person comes in, we offer 12 different wraparound services. So it just depends on how many services they need. And then sometimes they need to come back. Let's say if they start out because they just got out of prison and they're trying to get up on their feet, we'll help them. We'll deal with, some criminal justice stuff. Say they don't have their license, so we have to work with them to try and help them get their license back. Then, they want a job, then they need this, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, they may come back and want to get their record expunged. So it's very difficult to say that. Steve, can you answer that in any different way? Yeah.
Right.
So
in that example, you pay the fees for them to get their license back? Do you pay for the justice?
It depends on what is available and what we can convince other organizations to cover, and whether or not we can smile and bat our eyes and say, you got a little money on the side, help us out.
Right.
So we always ask, though. I don't have a problem asking.
Okay, yeah, I know that Mr. Chalmers said that you all are connectors, not really service providers, and I was curious about
Except for workforce.
what that, workforce, for that. Now, in your budget here that you sent us, the January through March, in the funds report column for example, consultant professional services, it says $123,000, about $124,000 itself.
Yes.
What is professional service? What is consultants? What's in that budget?
Yes, what that covers is our human resources consultants, project managers, HR consultant, different things like that. I'm more than willing to give, I would be happy to give you a list if that's what you like. Marketing and advertising, different things like that to bring people in. Our website, stuff like that.
Okay. Because I don't see any used or actuals kind of in here. There's some actuals.
That's
and
because
so
we
forth.
used them from because we had to get the money used from the different pots of money that we had that were running out. So that's why we haven't used all of those yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And kind of in the same vein, the row for state, federal taxes and fees, it's 125,000. Is that payroll taxes? Is that the kind of?
No, actually, what we realized was, and that was my error, myself and our accountant this weekend had a long conversation about that. Those funds need to be redistributed, reallocated, hopefully in some other ways. But initially, before we got our 501c3, because we were actually operating prior to getting our 501c3, so we did have state and federal taxes. And that's how that ended up on the list in the first place.
And that was when you were first starting?
It was,
right?
yes,
Okay.
sir.
And so it just kind of,
It just didn't
it
fall
just hung
off.
around on the
Correct.
sheet itself.
Correct.
And just for clarity, for your ask for 24-25, this was still calculated in that ask, right?
It was reallocated.
Okay.
And then when it was I guess a miscommunication between myself and the accountant, it got on the old one, just redid the budget and didn't get marked off.
Okay. Do we know about where those funds may be reallocated? Have you guys thought about that?
I can tell you exactly. I don't have it with me
Yeah.
right this second, but I can tell you exactly. Yes, sir.
If you could send it,
And
that's
quite
fine.
a bit of them go to the other contractor subawards category for the mental health services that are being provided with for the participants that do not qualify for I always get it wrong, Medicare, that don't qualify for Medicaid, because one thing we do at HRJM is if someone comes in and we think they're qualified for Medicaid, but they're not signed up, our care managers sign them up so that we're able to make sure that they get everything that they have coming to them. We are absolutely going to spend our money, your money, the community's money as a last-ditch effort.
Okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate that commitment there itself. And just one more, when I asked about professional service, we talked about as possible, the website and stuff like that. The technology infrastructure line item is $36K.
Right.
Would that include the website stuff?
It
includes is that networking
some,
and Wi-Fi?
but a lot of it is infrastructure stuff like the phones for our staff out in the community, the laptops that are and then the programs and everything that goes with that.
Software.
Yes, training software, different things like that fall. And also a database. Let me get it right. Our workflow, an online database filing system for the participants. It was put together on a grant from MetLife, and MetLife gave us a grant in a partnership with MDC, and that is actually what they helped us create.
Okay.
And so that is paid for each month.
Okay, so that's a monthly.
Yes.
Now, I just have two more questions. What is your capacity at any given time for participants? You said you had 9 graduating tomorrow?
Oh, you're talking about with Bridge, because we
okay.
wanted to be very clear, because people often think that
Combined.
HRJM is
Okay,
Bridge.
okay.
But, there's 170 other people.
Right.
So it depends on, the capacity for Bridge, each cohort is 15.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And my last question is more of a general kind of question, open-ended kind of question. So you're here today making an ask, 1.5 million, okay? Fast forward to this time next year, and if we were able to approve that $1.5 million, what does success look like? So what is it that you would be able to come back and say, okay, you invested this $1.5 million into us. We wanted these outcomes. I told you these outcomes today. Was this June 2nd,
Yes.
2025. This is how we performed on those outcomes. So what outcomes would you tell me today that you would mean success on June 2nd, 2026?
June 2nd, 2026.
What are the outcomes you expect to get with this money?
Well, we may have different opinions of this, but I can say with the money that we got last year, we provided 750 services, and that to me is definitely a win. That's something that we know that the majority of those people would not have gotten from somewhere else, because high touch people are the ones that usually fall through the cracks.
Okay.
And then they would have also had to go to 12 different organizations in order to get the help that was given to them at this one. So, Steve.
Yeah. Again, above and beyond, providing the services, the one thing that LA and I have concentrated on from the beginning is how we move to self-sustainability. And that is first and foremost the thing that is on my mind on a regular basis. We know what we are doing is needed. We know that the funding is limited. So one of the goals that we have right now is to identify other resources in this community and other communities that we can kind of bring to bear. That would also understand, we're working with the PERC initiative now through the city, which is basically has recognized that Durham has the capability of doing some great things, and we have been at the table from the beginning with this initiative, and really one of the driving forces as they operate on a day-to-day basis. Just had a meeting this past week. So that to me is really what we're looking to do. Again, we started to build this as Durham's initiative, and ultimately that's what we're hoping that it will actually become, and that the entire Durham community would invest in this, and that the meetings that we're having today, that we don't continue to have those.
Right.
May I also interject one more thing, sir, because there are a few of you that weren't here before, and I've said this before. I have to admit that coming here and doing this is always uncomfortable for me. But I will say this. I spent over 30 years in prisons and finished as a federal warden. And I never had to beg for a dime to lock anybody up, not one. But yet it seems that all I've done since I retired and came back and did this work because I feel like it's the right thing to do is beg for money. And yes, it's public money, but it's a public problem. These are the things that we have promised these people when you campaign, when we do it. We're not asking you to do it, just help us do it. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Right. I absolutely agree with you on that. It is a backward system. But, we have to, as county commissioners, we have to be the stewards of whatever little bit of budget that we have, and we want to make sure that we're allocating it to get the best results of what we can afford. And so,
May I ask a question, sir? I guess you asked what we were looking for with regard to success, and I would just like to ask if the county commissioners feel like that an investment of $1 million last year was, if there was a proper return on investment for serving 750 services within the city of Durham.
well, so I'll let anybody else answer that, but that's kind of governance I am looking to do as a new commissioner.
Right.
Is understand up front what are the plans,
Right.
and then compare them at the end. I don't know, throwing out a number of 750 services, I don't know if that's high or low. I have no context on that, And so, but if last year you said our goal is to hit 600 services, and you came back and you actually were able to do 750, I would say, oh, you overachieved. That's wonderful, right? So I don't really have a context on that,
Right.
and so I can't answer if it was good or bad. I think it's great
Our
because I
KPIs
can
were
see your
150, just so you know,
I can
that's
see
what
your
our
excitement.
KPIs were.
I can see your excitement in it, so I read
I'm passionate.
that it was actually really good, right? I can read that, and so the things that you asked for $500,000 was your operating, but $1 million were your new services, and I guess what I'm looking for is in those new services, as you're strategically planning, what do you expect to achieve of those new services, right? And so that way, when we come back, just like you just mentioned, we'll know a context of, with these new services, we wanted to, increase our services to 250 people, right?
Yes.
And so it was, 250 people, cool. So now when we come back next year and you say, we were actually able to get to 325 people, even though we wanted 250, we're like, that we're actually getting outcomes.
Right.
Let us see if we can find a little bit extra, because whatever your program is, you're actually making it happen. And okay, we're doing that. Let's give you a little bit more and see if we get to 500.
Right.
And then let's get a little bit more the next year and get to 700. Right. That kind of thing is what I'm looking for, and that's how I govern.
Fantastic.
And that's where
I
the
think
question.
that's great.
That's where the question comes from. It's not from a criticism. This is not a year for me of criticizing anybody's ask. It's your job to ask.
Absolutely.
My job is to see if we're getting a return. Not if we're getting a return, because it's going to be a return. Even if you serve one person, that's a return. But if the outcomes that you're expecting to happen are happening, and so so that's why I was asking about
thank you.
that with the $1 million, and I'm gonna have to come and chat with you because I still
Please,
like to get an idea.
Please do. We invite you guys. Please come over to HRJM.
Of what that $1 million, what the strategic idea about the $1 million, but I'm gonna pass it over to.
And we do have our KPIs,
Michelle.
and just for reference, I want to let you know that we exceeded 5 times what we committed to for this year.
Okay.
And I think that's one reason why you're reading my passion.
And so the KPIs is something I do in work. I work almost extensively in that with my organization that I lead. And so when you present, when I come chat with you all, I would love to see those KPIs, understand what your plan for your KPIs will be, so that when we have this conversation next year, it will be good. Commissioner.
We
Burton.
also have 2 full presentations on the new, the 2 new programs that we were talking about, and would love to send them to you if you'd like them.
Absolutely, please do. Commissioner Burton.
Yes, and I'm going to be brief, but I just want to address, the question that you have. I'm an educator, 30 years. I was a school librarian. Everybody knows that, right? And it's the same kind of business. It's relational, relationships, right? You're spending your day with kids. You're trying to mentor them, coach them, build them up, things like that. And sometimes it's hard to quantify, right?
It is.
And, adults who have been marginalized, justice involved, things like that. You're trying to do that same kind of work, right? We're just in a very, very the budget, the finances are very tight this year. And you, in this role, you have to make some tough decisions. So I get the vision of what you're trying to do. You're trying to get human beings, and you're trying to say, okay, this is available to you, this is available to you, let's figure out where your strengths are so we can build you up, and that takes a lot of touches, right? So I think as a commission, we have to decide, okay, because we have all these asks, where do we put the money? And we have to ask these tough questions. So I just wanted to share that with you. I get what both of you are trying to do. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's difficult to measure the immeasurable.
Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make a comment. So goals and measures are important. Me and Vice Chair Lee talked about these things extensively, and I agree that they are important. But something that you said made me come back to your presence here today. And I think Vice Chair Lee will agree with me on this. You keep on coming to this chamber and you make people feel as uncomfortable as you can. Even if part of being uncomfortable is in your own skin.
That's right.
Because that's where change occurs. And your involvement and the community's involvement, quite frankly, in our discussions are an important component of the work that we do. So keep on being uncomfortable.
All right.
Anyone else?
All hearts and minds are settled? Good. Thank you so very much. It's very nice to see you all.
We appreciate you all very much.
Yeah, and you will be seeing me. You absolutely will be seeing me. Okay? All right. Thank you all. Manager Hager. Do we want to find
Yeah.
that? All right, we're going to take a quick break, 5-7 minutes for restroom, okay? Back.
We're ready.
Microphone check, 1, 2. All right. We're back to end up our budget work session very quickly. So I'll hand it to Manager Hager.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. On our last meeting on Thursday, we walked through areas that the board considered adjustments to the budget to date. There were a few areas that we said we would follow up on, and those we put on our add delete list. Keith will go through them, but before we do, just want to recap that we have all of your items that we're bringing back to you. In the fall, we're coming back, or in August, on a conversation on justice services, the Alliance. We'll also have a follow-up based on this morning's conversation with the district attorney, which will also include Durham Public Schools as we look at approaches to address student attendance, looking historically at what's been done in the past, as well as some best practices. So we will coordinate with the superintendent to do that. We will have at the city-county meeting a conversation on Durham Museum of Arts and their the Durham Museum.
Durham History.
Durham History.
Museum
I
of
am
Durham
tired.
History.
I'm giving them new
MODH.
head.
They
I
may
saw the
have some
eyes
art in
like,
there.
who is she talking about? I have named a new organization. But the Durham Museum of History at the joint city-county meeting. And there will also, at that meeting, be some conversation about the homeless community. That's some joint strategy happening between the city and the county. I will also bring an update to the board by Friday on the RFP that we'll be doing to address some day shelter pilot initiatives. And so that'll come out on Friday. Thought it was important to recap all of those issues before we get to our add delete list. And I may have missed something, but I'm sorry. Oh, and pre-K. For pre-K, we will be handling that at our June 23rd meeting with a contract amendment in grant funding. So that will not show up on the list, but we have a solution. John Kiefer I talked with Dr. Chappelle on Thursday afternoon. John worked with her, and they have a contract amendment that we can use to address the pre-K issues that were brought up. So that's a recap, yes.
One question. When I was reading Keith's follow-up,
The budget office and management's follow-up. Thank you.
okay, sorry.
Let's be clear,
The
a lot of
budget
hands
and
involved.
management follow-up to my questions, it said that the low-income homeowner relief program would actually not be funded at the current level of $500K for each city and county. Did I read that wrong?
I think that we should have kept that at this base level for the low income. I think where it may be different is with
It's the other eviction.
it's the eviction
I think
diversion.
diversion dropped off significantly.
We funded that at the
but-
levels of pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID amounts.
We
but
funded that, and we will address it as the budget availability occurs if funds
Right.
cannot happen. If you may recall, when this has come up before, we did say that we would potentially use funds that were not allocated in the low-income homeowners program to eviction or diversion and do that shift. But the low-income homeowners should be the same. I think we were
Okay.
projecting to spend about close to $800,000 the current year to date.
Okay, this is what the response says. The total amount of funding for the LIHR program for FY 25-26 is $500K, $250 from the city, $250 from the county. So that's actually,
it probably should have been 500 and 500, I believe.
okay, so
It
that's a
should have been the
mistake.
same.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a mistake.
That's a mistake because
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
that's a mistake
All right.
because we
Attention to-
spent 800,000 this
okay.
year.
If anything, we're trending higher, which is
Right.
what you all wanted, and I
That's
think
right.
you came back and
Yep,
heard
exactly.
yes and the managers.
Thanks but we'll follow up to make
Okay.
sure just
Okay.
inadvertently.
Okay, just so
Yeah.
you know, I do read
Yes,
what
you
you all
do.
send me, so.
Y'all all do. Y'all keep us on our toes. Thank you so much.
It's not for naught. It's appreciated.
Yes, yes. So with that, we will pull up on the screen the two items that were reconciliation points from our Thursday conversation. And I'll let Keith talk from there because we recapped everything except those two.
We got a couple of commissioners that weren't here, or at least one that wasn't here at the last meeting, just to make sure. The add-delete list is, and we'll just do a recap, a little relearning here, is a list where we talk about some changes to the manager's recommended budget based off of discussions that the board may be having, as well as some things that change that are sort of management changes. In a budget this big, there's always a few things the budget office or others might miss or have to update with new information. So with that said, the add-delete, simply what it sounds like. Are we adding money? Are we deleting money? Are we adding revenues or taking revenues away from the manager's recommended budget as we step towards a commissioner-approved budget? You see three colors up here in this table that's being shown in front of you and up on the screen. The blue color, the light blue color at the top are sort of management-related changes. These are changes based off of new information that we had, and we'll go through those two first. There's some administrative changes we need to make to the pre-K base budget amount. We underfunded for a number of reasons, $126,000. So we need to hold them to where we meant to hold them to. It's a plus $126,000 in expenditures that we need to fund them. Then we also had a revenue offset come from the Medicaid Transformation Office of Emergency Services, some additional information where they said, oh, there's $300,000 in additional revenue we didn't budget in the manager's recommended budget. Great. That offsets the $126,000 in expenditures, plus adds another $100,000 to the budget, which we would then take away in another revenue source fund balance. But this is what add-delete. Second color coding there, what I call purple, at least what it's looking like on my screen, is where the big dollars are. This is the jockeying between commissioners about issues that are important to you. And what was spoke of last week was an additional $2.574 million going to DPS for a few specific issues, along with the 20+% whenever we do an increase for Durham Public Schools for charter school amount. And so that's a plus $2.57 million that you all asked the budget office and management to figure out how to pay for that. Where can we find the money to pay for that $2.5 million in additional funding to DPS? Commissioner Jacobs? It nets out to $2.57 million.
And part of it is part of the charters, I may believe.
It's adjusting
Yeah.
for the charter school
Yeah.
amounts.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's an add. What you see underneath there, now I'm moving into how the manager's office and the budget office is proposing to deal with this. One of the solutions to the problem to offset that additional $2.57 million is that we could possibly reduce the amount of capital funding that we give annually to DPS. It's $6 million is what's in the manager's recommended budget, down to $5 million. That frees up $1 million in funding. That's why you see it as a negative $1 million expenditure, a decrease of $6 million down to $5 million. Remember, the managers also offered DPS, once we get some clarifications, up to $10 million in long-term financing, LOPS funding, when they identify needs that they have, urgent needs, HVAC, repairs, getting some of their current capital project schools up and running. So there's $10 million in LOB funding for them. There's $5 million in this proposal. For that, there's $2.5 million a year in lottery funds that schools have available to them for capital expense. They have significant funding. They would argue there's never enough, and they wouldn't be wrong, but this is where we're coming. We're using $1 million of capital money and moving it to current expense to limit the cost to the taxpayers of the county. So now we've taken care of 1 million of that $2.57 million increase. Where do we find the other $1.7 million? Well, we found some of it in that net decrease and increase in the administrative stuff. What do we need? We need to find, as David's hovering, $1.4 million in new money. Management team and the budget office sat for an hour longer on Friday, I believe, Claudia, didn't we?
We sat for a while and thought about it all weekend.
And we considered all the revenue, and there just simply aren't revenue sources available that we can increase, and there's no single expenditure place that we can go to, programmatic or otherwise, to cut $1.4 million to bring us into balance. Commissioner Jacobs.
Okay, well,
Wait,
we,
hold on.
oh, you want to wait? Go ahead.
No. Nita has her hand up. She's had it up for a little while, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got you.
And can I make one more comment as far as the vetting? There was an offer or a reminder about, I know cars was an area of big concern of the board members as far as the cost. It's a big ticket item. Our concern with that was the timing of impending tariffs and potentially costing us more in out years. General Services has presented a consideration for us looking at a lease approach for cars, and so we're doing more research on that. That is something that we did not feel comfortable enough to move forward with that arrangement in such a small window. It is an option that is already approved and is on state contract, so over the next several months, as we vet buying vehicles, we will see if that is a potential for something for us to consider. But we need to do the cost benefit of it before we can feel confident bringing that to the board. So it wasn't just something that we did quickly, but there were considerations. Plus this budget, as you know, we've vetted it quite a bit. So doing this adjustment is not one that we take lightly, but it is our best effort at this juncture.
All right, Nita.
Says it includes the charter, but just like recognizing and saying it out loud that like 1 million for capital is not the same as 1 million for salaries. 1 million for capital is actually equal to 820,000 for salaries, correct? So like when removing it, DPS doesn't get much. And that's not necessarily like to say that we should give more, that's just to point it out that we have that fee. And wondering, so my question also related to that is, have we had a conversation with DPS?
Commissioner, Chair Alam, I hate to say this, can you start over because we actually couldn't hear you
Oh,
at
okay.
first.
Can you hear
If
me
you
now?
could, now we can. If you could start
Okay.
all over again, sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that I just wanted to make a note that that 1 million from capital expense isn't actually equal to 1 million in salaries because of that charter school fee that we have to pay. That moving 1 million is actually 800, it translates to 820,000 to salary. And that's not necessarily to say that we should move even more to salaries, but just that we should be cognizant of that. And on that note, I wanted to confirm, like, have we been able to work with DPS to confirm that the money that they have asked us for and that we are allocating to them to salaries properly calculates the amount that they owe to charters? Because I know that's been an issue in the past year, and like, I would like that to like, and I know I missed the meeting, I was in surgery last Thursday when they came and presented, but like to get absolute confirmation from them that what we are funding to them includes the percentage that they, like with the calculations of how much it'll give increases to their staff, that's not dipping into the charter fees. That would be my first question. And then my second point would be around like the presentation we just received. I honestly, like from that presentation from the Hayti Justice Reborn, have a lot of concerns and questions still remaining that like I didn't feel were answered adequately about like the services provided to the value of like of the money, public funding that they are receiving. Because on one slide it's saying that they have cohorts of 7 to 10 people graduating in each cohort. And then another slide says they're providing 750 services, but those services aren't actually provided by them, it's provided by other organizations. And I feel like that's not a fair representation of where our tax dollars are going that we are stewards of. And I would actually, like, my preference is that we remove that funding from this budget cycle.
No, I mean,
I won't begin to talk about the second statement that the Chair Alam spoke to, but as it relates to the first question, I will say that the Budget Office, David and I, are very confident that the charter school funding assessment done by DPS, the amount, Jeremy Teeter has a very specific formula that he's used, that David backed into, that we have followed in terms of assessing the sub amount. Now, remember, they wanted roughly 5.6 million more from us to get full funding. We're looking at 2.57 million. That 2.57 million, Commissioner Alam, Chair Alam, I need to hear, does include already the charter school money. So it's a dollar for dollar move from current capital to current expense. Because that $2.57 million includes the charter school amount needed. They really need less for DPS, plus another 20+% for charter schools, which gets you to 2.57, and we're moving $1 million to that. So it's a dollar for dollar in this particular case. I hope that answers Commissioner Chair Alam's question.
Yes, I wanted, and I had that concern too, that the amount that they were estimating for the charter school surcharge, making sure that's enough, because I know in a couple of years past, they miscalculated. So just making sure that's the right amount. With the Hayti Reborn, hearing that presentation, and thank you, Commissioner Chair Alam, for your response on that. I would be willing to give them $500,000. I don't think they need the whole amount, but maybe $500,000 to continue operations. When I was listening to the presentation, they said that they received, was it $4.7 million within the last, 3 years? Am I correct about that? And I think we need to just start decreasing the amount, and hopefully they come up with a plan to raise money to be, self-sustaining, but I'm willing to go to $500,000. Give them this one more year to figure out how they're going to go about to raise financing.
So just so you all know, there is $1 million budgeted in the manager's recommended budget for Hayti. So to go down to $500,000, you would see us put on that add delete a minus $500,000. You're that much closer to solving the $2.5 million ask for DPS. Just giving you the numbers.
okay, so
This
we have
isn't-
5 minutes.
This is a nice picture, but can we see the add to leave list? Yeah, I agree with, I support what Commissioner Burton had suggested, because what I also heard in their presentation, and I made a point of emphasizing that too, was that $500K for them is a continuation budget. And I don't think that any of us are, we are not looking at expansion budgets for anybody. We really, we're trying to support DPS in that, and we're doing that in public safety in Durham County, but nowhere else in our departments. So I just, we're in that austerity time, and I think also, I agree, they need to really come up with a sustainability plan moving forward, and also I think we will be in that process of everybody with having a new nonprofit funding process. They can participate in that. So if because I see what was projected there around a tax increase, and I'm not comfortable with going up on taxes to that degree that's proposed there. So I hope that this can also help us reduce what we may have. I really don't want to increase our taxes, so I'd like to see where that gets us to, if we can reallocate that 500,000.
The math on the spreadsheet very quickly shows you if I take $500,000 down for Hayti, it gets us to where we still need a 1/10 of 1 cent increase. So the manager had recommended a 3.5 cent tax rate increase. This would be a 3.6 cent tax rate increase. That's adding $2.5 million to DPS current expense, taking $1 million away from DPS current capital, decreasing Hayti $500,000 to a budget of $500,000, and the net of that is you're still out of balance $900,000. In order to make up that $900,000, we're proposing a 1/10 of a cent tax rate increase and the use of $46,000 in additional general fund balance.
So going back to the vehicles budget, there wasn't any area that you all felt like we could decrease a little bit?
We did that approach before, and it ended up costing us more money. And in a time when there are just unknowns about the impact with tariffs, we're just concerned with the pricing of what will happen.
To give you a frame of reference, that 1/10 of 1 cent increase is $3 on a $300,000 house, $6 more than 3.5 cents. That 1/10 of 1% of 1 cent, excuse me.
All right, well, that's about as far as I'm willing to go.
Valentine, do you have anything? Your mic is on.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, Vice Chair. Acting Chair.
I like it.
I guess I agree with my colleague in at least in one regard, with regards to taxing our residents. I'm very concerned about that. I've heard from a large swath of our community on this question. Oddly enough, there are a lot of our residents who would be in a position to say, "Hey, raise taxes in order to give more money to the school." But in light of the reappraisal and the current environment we're in, I'm not comfortable with raising taxes in this environment. And so, to the extent that we do it, I think I could go along with the proposed in this particular instance. Now, with regards to the reduction of Hayti Reborn, I've already been on record and said that I would support them in the proposed budget request. But to the extent that this gets us to where we need to go to solve another problem in our community with regards to our budget, I'm willing to agree. And plus, it would appear to me that the math is there from my side of the equation, and so it may be that we're going in that direction. So I'd be willing to support it.
Okay. All right. We're going to be ending up here. I'm not going on record yet to say which way I support with the Hayti Justice program, but I will say, let us think about, if this starts to drive it not to be in action anymore, that'll be 2 programs that have been reduced for their constituency. Let's think about the larger picture for those who are working towards black and brown individuals who are having challenges. My concern is when like with the Bull City United program, when these things happen at individual times, you can't see a collective action. You can't see like a collective strategy or emotion. And so if we do that, Bull City, whatever challenges that they had is gone. With this, we're starting to get down to only operational costs. They may not be able to increase what they're doing. If we're starting to decrease there, and that's a separate motion, something else comes down the line, we start to decrease, we're actually divesting from the programming in which they are targeting. And I want to make sure that we're not doing that inadvertently without thinking about the larger picture of who's being served. All right, that is my concern here. That is my concern when I hear the comments about this, the services, so forth. But we've already gotten rid of one of the organizations that are doing these services such as this, not exactly in line, but kind of services in that area. Now with this one, there's like a lot of discernment about what's happening, but it's services, right? It's services we need, we talk about, we campaign about when we're running for county commissioner and for our roles, school board, mayor, whatever. If we continue to divest throughout Durham, there's not going to be anything left, and I fear for that. That's all I wanted to say about it. I'm not saying which way I'm supporting. Listen, I hear the comments. I'm here to learn more and then make a decision. I'm going to go hang out with them for a little bit and learn a little bit more. But, I share your concerns, but I share the larger concern about the services that are being constrained from Durham youth, and so forth. All right, are there any other comments here? Because we're like 3 minutes past and I gotta go.
Vice Chair, I just would like to say I appreciate your comments.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would actually say I want to really create a bigger context that actually Durham County heavily invests in serving the population that Hayti Reborn is also serving. We have an entire Justice Services Department of 86 people that focuses on reentry, and we have a reentry council, and they do case management connection to resources. That is actually what our department does. And even, they in their expansion budget, they want to focus on youth. I would just say that we're expanding our project build program in this year's budget, and we're going to be redirecting some of the BCU funds into that program, which is serving, again, our at-risk youth. Mm-hmm. And through the ARPA funding, we fund many, many organizations. So I don't agree with what you said about that we are not actually serving this population.
I didn't say we're not.
That we're pulling back.
I said we are. A reduction is a reduction. Well, if we had, even if it's 100 organizations doing it, reducing 2 is a reduction of those services.
Well, so okay.
I didn't say we're not.
Okay, but the 500K is what they said is continuation. They said the $1 million is expansion. Right. So we're not reducing, we're maintaining.
Okay.
I know you got to go. I just want to say numerically, we're $900,000 out. We're proposing 1/10 of a cent. If you add $500,000 back, you're $1.4 million out. So just that number is 900,000. We're trying to figure out for tomorrow, plus or minus anything you all have numerically in your head. That's where we are right now. We'll talk about it again in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
All right, thank you.